Good day and welcome to the dining room table. As I was getting ready to do this video on the New York City public safety briefing, I received an alert. I want to say my condolences to the 17-year-old who was just shot and killed, and the 17-year-old who prayers for him, who's in the hospital shot. This I don't know any more details than this, but 7:37 a.m. in the morning, that's school time. So it's like a coincidence that we're covering the plan of New York City public safety and education um, on safety, and this is a real problem. This is a problem in New York City. This is a national problem. When you go to other countries, you see it's a global problem. But this is school time and two 17-year olds. And like I said, I don't know any more of the details, but this goes right into the school safety. This video is addressing school to prison pipeline. Right? That's what when you're talking about school safety, that's exactly, and I'm very pleased to know that this administration is actually addressing this. I have seen the school to prison pipeline um, many times, live and direct, and if it's not addressed, then exactly what it says. Uh, creating a pipeline for the kids to go to prison. Listen, the top picture is a picture of a school hallway, and the bottom picture is in a prison. Look at the yard when the kids go out to play in the yard, or even the food. I used to go into Rikers Island and sit with the prisoners in their day room and talk to them, and those hallways, and in the morning I would have left my children's school during career day, and in the afternoon, I'm in Rikers Island, and it's like a shock for you because you're seeing like two different places, but they looked alike. You're in the cafeteria in your child's school, and they're bringing out this tray of food, and then later in the day, I'm in the day room of Rikers Island, and they're bringing out a tray of food, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is too similar. It's like they're preparing them when they're walking down the hallway, when the prisoners are lying down the hallway and they're walking down the hallway, and when you're in the school and they're walking down, it's like the whole system. um but the violence that comes out of it, that's what this uh deputy mayor is going to address. I didn't watch it, but I do know it's about school safety, so I just thought everything just went together. When you look at a classroom, in the summertime, you got to get a fan. I remember in a classroom, the teacher had to open the windows. It was so hot. We were hoping that it didn't get too hot before school let out because there's no ACs. The teacher has chalk all over themselves. The desk maybe a little bit broken, and these were the classrooms, right? But then I went into a criminal court, and it had central AC, marble counters, wood on the wall, and shiny floors. And I said, man, if we just invest a little bit more of that into the classroom, we won't need these courtrooms so much. Maybe, right? Maybe. And it's more things, right? It's not just the setting, right? It's the food, right? It's the housing. Sometimes in the school system, the young people need more. The education, yes, but they need more. Their homes need more. Maybe their homes need employment. Maybe their homes need counseling. Maybe their homes need housing. Maybe their homes need food. I remember when I used to go into Rikers Island, I used to bring in booklets that the city HPD prints on how to help with housing. If you are behind on your rent, if you're on behind utilities, if you need a lawyer, whatever the situation is, there was someone in there, a phone number, and I had uh, New York City HPD and I had Department of Corrections coordinate for them to ship these booklets to Rikers Island. So I would go around to the houses and hand out the booklets, and I would have English and Spanish. And I remember handing a Spanish one to a young man. And the next time I came, he told me that when he called home, instead of asking for money, he was telling his mother how to save their home. Because once he goes home, he had no place to go home to. So that could lead to, more crime or, whatever the situation, homelessness, So he was happy to get this booklet of services. And sometimes that's what prevents, and you're not waiting until they're in Rikers Island. This information is given out when they're in kindergarten and pre-K to their parents for that help, to see if maybe they need employment help, to see if they need counseling, to see what they need. um so we're not just creating this format of of the school to prison pipeline, right? And then they have the issue of weapons being brought to schools. The city doesn't put it out as much, but they get a lot of d- you know the public safety, school safety, they get a lot of weapons. Sometimes they post them on their social media of kids bringing them to school in their book bag. I know there was a video of a young man jumping on another a girl's back, and the gun falling out of there. uh, some schools have the metal detectors, some don't. So this is an issue, in the school systems that they got to get a hold of. And then sometimes it's not even on school, right? Sometimes it's at the bus stop, it's on the way home from school. I mean, kids are not really going to fight right there in front of school. They're going to move away from the school, or it may happen on the bus, or it may happen and if you're crossing other territories, or whatever the situation is. They have to also look at the violence that happens there. But you know that all comes with conflict mediation, talking to these kids. um I remember my daughter in a school, and you know i- the 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 conflicts between the kids, they need more mediation, and at younger ages, and know that it's not always that this young person is just angry or wants to fight. It could be other things. It could be other things like food in the home. It could be other things like not having housing, right? I had a mother call me crying, and her kids were crying in the back because they didn't know where they were going to live. So it could be way more than that, than what you see. It could be a loss of a parent. It could be a loss of a sibling. It could be just going to bed hungry. It could be so many things that it has to be addressed in this situation. But like I said, I'm glad to see that they are addressing it. I just want to let how did we get here? Like what are the issues with school safety? And then you have the gangs. You have young people who are recruited or clicked together. um I remember hearing about a fight that was supposed to happen at a mall. Well, I think it did. It was in the news. And young people were able to coordinate thousands of young people to the mall for this fight. And the stores in the mall, they had to close down because there were so many kids and it was too much. The mall safety couldn't handle it. And I think it's through a Facebook page or something that they were able to coordinate this, and they have 1,000 kids there. And you can't call a parent teacher meeting and get that many people. And these young people were able to do it, and they came together to do it. So I think in that sense, you see the strength and the power these young people have, and we have to make sure we channel it um, uh, to the right way. Uh, uh, in a legal way, and in growth and entrepreneurship and prosperity, and education, and network and brotherhood and sisterhood, and um, there's already those platforms, there's already those communities, and just show them those ways. And then there's the fights. That's another that's another issue that they're having, if you have the gangs and you may have the fights. Even if you don't have it, you can still have the fights. So, but that's conflict mediation. There's something it could be, it, whatever it is, there's something that could be causing that. And sometimes, they're instant. Sometimes they're instant stuff, but sometimes there's stuff that they've been brewing and other people knew about it. And if they go and, now, address it, it may not lead to that. It may not lead to that. I remember doing a camp um one summer, and it was young girls from different high schools. And I am the lead, you know, I'm the lead captain, and I'm there. And someone came to me and said, Miss Trisha, they're arguing and they get ready to fight. Somebody always gonna come tell. They came and tell. And I pulled those girls aside and we had conversations, and it was just like, it was nothing. It was nothing. They're from two different high schools. They may have passed each other. They heard about this person, and there's group chats, and there's this and this, that. And it was like the conflict was absolutely about nothing. And I can tell you, by the time we left that camp, they were like crying because they weren't going to see each other for a little while after seeing each other every single day. And it was just a simple conflict. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to address those, and they have organizations that help with those things. And that way, the young people can now focus more on the education and the building, and then thinking about, oh, I got to make sure I got my Vaseline, I got to make sure I'm ready, I got to make sure. No, no, we need these young people to be the lawyers and the doctors and the scientists, and we need them. We need them to be focused on their math and their science and their English, so not thinking about, who I got to call. So for New York City administration to be addressing school safety, like, that's that we're gonna hear what they're gonna say, but that's very important, right? And then you have the bullying. So you're gonna have the bullying. You're gonna have the bullying, but sometimes it's because of other things. Maybe that child is being bullied at home, right? And then it's how the person who's being bullied also responds to it. My children don't know name brand clothes. They don't know name brand clothes. So, I'm pretty sure people look at them and be like, other kids was like, "Oh, you're not wearing," but in their mind, what I tell them, I don't want them to wear other people's brands. As of course you're gonna always have something of some other brand, and sometimes you do like other people's brands and you wear, but for the most part, no, they wear their brand if possible. But some people may bully them because they're not the high price brand. And when you're in high school, junior high school, you have kids who are wearing the high price brand, and then you have kids who will wear the same sneaker every single day. And yeah, bullying could be an issue. And then you also have cyberbullying. And the cyberbullying uh is something that's monitored, right? They may not always get the bullying and the fights in the school, but the cyberbullying, oh yeah, law enforcement, they're following all the Instagram messages and the Twitter messages and the TikToks and the music videos and YouTube. So if they think they're looking at all of those and wrapping everybody up as gangs and so but here's what I have to say. This also leads to gun violence, right? And I wasn't always a fan of school safety under NYPD because of the fact that it appears that it's creating the school to prison pipeline. That if your child has a fight in middle school, once school safety puts that in their records, NYPD has the same record. So that child has always had issues, even though the child is a minor and it shouldn't be. And I could be wrong, but it appears to play along with the school to prison pipeline. However, because of so many random school shootings, school safety in our schools become a must. Because if we were to ever face one of those things, God forbid, the connection between the police department would have a faster response. Um, yeah, I used to think that they should be under DOE. I believe the way they used to be. Uh, so it was a DOE record and not NYPD record. And I still feel like that about the records and the gang database and all that, which we'll go to in other videos. But the gun violence. But once again, what I always say in almost all my videos, how do the guns get to New York City? So, you may want to blame the fights and the youth and the gangs and all these things that's causing all this violence. But how are the guns even getting into our borders? They should not even be able to touch. If a gun comes into New York City and gets anywhere near a school, parties responsible should be more than that young man who pulled that trigger. There's yes, responsible held accountable. However, there are other people that should be held accountable as well. There's no way that gun should have come into the borders. Someone is not doing everything they're supposed to be doing. Someone is not doing there's someone paid to make sure that that gun does not come into their borders. So they should have made sure that gun does not go nowhere near that school. Should have never even got into that young person's hand. Should have never got into that young person who who's going to spend the rest of their life in prison, and who killed another young person, or in the case that we saw earlier, two young people shot, one killed. That should have never happened, because someone's job is to make sure that that gun never touches that kid's hand, never touches this border. But who loses? Those two young men that were shot, their families, the person who did the shooting, their families. Let's get to the video and hear from Deputy Mayor Banks. He has Commissioner Shule and Chancellor Banks, and they are going to talk about school safety. Everything. So I just gave you an idea of the issues in the schools, right? Uh, and there's more. There's more. And if anyone who's gone through the school system, um, you've seen it. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of weapons that they get that they don't necessarily talk about until maybe the end of the year. They may talk about, and then the violence outside and the conflicts. So, once again, I'm happy to see them even addressing this, uh, because the school to prison pipeline is real. Now, you can see these types of meetings throughout New York City. He's been having many of them. You can go to your local police precinct. They have meetings. Your community board, which I was a part of a community board, they a lot of times have public safety meetings. And you just hear, if you live in New York City, if you have children going to school in New York City, if you're thinking about moving to New York City, you want to know what are they going to do about the safety of your child in the school, and not just from local violence, but also from terrorists who are, they go around and they shoot up schools, and innocent people are getting killed, babies, teachers. So this is important for us to listen to.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's public safety briefing led by Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Phil Banks. Following our last speaker, we will take a few questions from the media, followed by some questions that have been submitted by the public ahead of today's briefing. I would now like to turn it over to Deputy Mayor Phil Banks.
Good afternoon. On behalf of, on behalf of Mayor Adams, I'd like to start by wishing all those who celebrate a happy Passover, a happy Holy Week, happy Easter, and a continued Ramadan Mubarak. I'm joined here today by NYPD Police Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell, the New York City Department of Education Chancellor David Banks, NYPD School Safety Commanding Officer Deputy Chief Marlon Laren, and the Department of Education's Chief of Safety and Prevention Partnership, Mark Rampersant. We're here today to talk to you about an extremely important and critical safety issue, and that is school safety. At the core, we are talking about the safety of our most treasured population, our children. But before we begin, the police commissioner is going to be speaking about some crime stats and some information that she talked about yesterday. Commissioner?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So yesterday, the NYPD did its first quarter crime briefing, and we were able to report on some very encouraging numbers for the first quarter. We are down in 5 of the 7 major categories of crime in the city, and transit crime is at an 8% decrease year to date. We talk about the numbers being year over year, we're largely flat, but we are in a very different place than we were last year. Mayor Adams made it a point that we were going to focus on the violence that was plaguing the city at the time. At the beginning of last year, our greatest challenges were gun violence. There were shootings and shooting victims, and that's what was driving a lot of our crime data. But as we are today, that number is coming from felony assaults and grand larcenies. So we have continue to see the double-digit decreases in shootings and shooting victims and homicides, but we are also tackling the other major crimes as well. Most of our felony assaults result a lot from domestic violence cases. There are some assaults on officers as well, but we recognize that's something we have to drill down on. And we did a presser with the mayor about our grand larceny auto issues as well. But I think when we look at where we are and all of the numbers that we're able to drive down in the last year and 3 months is a true testament to the work of the women and men of the NYPD. And we're going to continue to push forward to drive down those other categories as well.
So having the numbers in MTA go down was important because MTA was losing business. People did not want to take the train because homeless people were sleeping on the train, and there's still homeless people, but they're reporting their stats, which is to show that they are actually doing that. Also, um, people are breaking into cars. You got to make sure your cars are locked. People are hungry. People are broke. People are unemployed. People are looking to feed their families. People have mental illness. You need if you make sure you have your insurance and make sure your cars are locked. And that's going to drive up insurance as well because but for her to say that the numbers are down, that helps. That's what you want to see. um when you're thinking about a city, you're thinking about how is the crime in the city, how is the schools, how's the safety in the schools.
Thank you, Commissioner. So one of the purposes of this public safety briefings is to keep the public informed of what is happening in the city, and it gives the administration the opportunity to talk directly to you and for us to hear directly from you. And you can sign up at here.com, right here from Eric.com, to receive email notifications from Mayor Adams and submit your questions and your comments. We will try to answer as many of these questions during these briefings, and the questions that we were not able to get to, you will receive a reply. Listen, the mayor believes in collaboration. This is evident in the many facets of this administration. From the meetings that he has held, which has produced the soon-to-be-released retail theft report, to the original ones, which was the Criminal Justice Summit, to the many meetings he has with community and elected officials, he has stated over and over again that we can win, but only if we all work together. This is especially true when it comes to public safety. Every single agency plays a role in protecting the public. While much of this collaboration goes on behind the scenes, if you have watched any of the previous public safety briefings before, you have seen examples of this. And we will be giving you a closer look at some of these initiatives in the future. But even if you can't always see the interagency collaboration, our hope is that you can feel it. Collaboration leads to better delivery of services and better results for the residents. So today, we are focused on one example of cross-agency collaboration, which is arguably our most important job: protecting our children and keeping our schools safe. The leadership team at this table knows that school safety does not begin when the kids walk through the doors in the morning, nor does it end when the last bell rings at the end of the school day. To that point, it's not just the responsibilities of these two agencies to keep our kids safe, but just about all city agencies as well, and members of the community. It is especially important for parents to be proactive in talking to your kids about school safety. It can be as simple as asking them how their day was at the dinner table. Let them know if you feel unsafe, don't have to be afraid. Tell somebody, tell one of the adults at school, tell your parents, tell a neighbor, tell someone. To the parents, monitor your kids' social media. Parents should be aware of what their children are posting or interacting with online. This is a true group effort. As the mayor says, we can win, but only if we work together.
Check their cell phone.
So today, we are going to provide everyone with a snapshot of just some, not all, but some of the ways that the NYPD and the Department of Education work together with the public to make sure we're keeping our kids safe. The mayor recently directed that a meeting be held with all the precinct commanding officers and all the school principals. To my knowledge, this was the first time this has occurred. I spent many years in the NYPD. I do not have a recollection where we held such a meeting. This relationship building has and is developing great success and is contributing to the safety of not only the children in the schools, but the teachers, administrators, agents, and visitors alike. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to NYPD Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. All of New York City's students need a safe learning environment in order to succeed in the classroom and to thrive in their communities. The NYPD is committed to ensuring that this environment exists in every New York City public school and protecting our school communities, students, staff, families, and teachers is at the core of our public safety mission. This is the determined focus of our nearly 4,000 school safety agents assigned to our school safety division, which Chief Laren will speak about. But we also recognize that safeguarding and improving our schools is not something that our school safety division does on its own. This administration has rightly taken the position that public safety is a collective responsibility. And part of this effort is for the NYPD to deepen its relationships in coordination with our partners. And one of those critical partners is the Department of Education under the leadership of Chancellor David Banks. The police department and the DOE have established true collaboration when working through issues related to school conditions, safety, and training. Our agents and officers cannot do their work without strong relationships with school principals, school administration, teachers, parents, and most importantly, students. While we do communicate frequently, in fact, the Chancellor and I actually meet weekly, earlier this year, as the Deputy Mayor said, the NYPD formalized a process that now requires that our borough and precinct commanders meet either in person or virtually on a monthly basis with every school principal in their area of responsibility. The response to this directive has been very positive from both our personnel and the DOE, and these meetings have provided an additional opportunity to discuss safety plans with our local schools and workshop new ideas. The NYPD has also been intensely focused on youth crime. Over the last several years, there have been a significant increase in the number of shooters under the age of 18 and the number under 18 of people who are victims and arrested with a gun. In fact, under 18 shooting victims actually accounted for 10% of our shooting victims over the last year.
Wow.
So pointedly, what we see is an increase in youth crime and more youth victims of crime. Over the past few months, the NYPD has deployed resources to ensure that our children have what we call safe passage to and from school each day. A child's commute is an extension of their school day, and wherever we see an issue arrive, we must have the resources in place to address it. This includes leveraging our patrol officers, traffic safety personnel, and our transit police officers to be strategically aware and visible on school routes and corridors. In addition to our school safety agents, our precinct-based youth coordination officers are also deployed daily to school dismissals across the city. But we know we cannot do this work in silos. We work closely with the mayor's office, the DOE, and others to keep our children safe. Lastly, it's important to highlight the joint work we perform with the DOE when it comes to active shooter and active threat training. While we all regret that there is even a need for such training, it addresses a stark reality of our modern times. Prior to the school year, in response to a number of school shooting incidents nationwide, the NYPD Counterterrorism Division and School Safety Division facilitated training and programs for school safety agents and members of the DOE. This training was designed to strengthen the response capabilities to all of those working in a school environment in the event of an active school shooter incident, and provide techniques and principles that can be effectively used to diminish threats of all types. Over 5,000 members of the NYPD School Safety Division and the DOE received this training. All of this is done to remain vigilant and to supplement the school safety plans that each precinct and patrol borough maintains, which are tailored to the conditions of our communities. Providing a safe climate in every New York City public school is of the utmost importance to the NYPD. And the police department will continue to work in partnership with the DOE, school leaderships, parents, students, and the communities we serve in furtherance of that responsibility. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Not for nothing, with all the shootings that we're hearing across the country, yeah, they got a big responsibility because, I mean, that no one wants to hear that anywhere. But it would be, they have to prepare for it. It's something we don't want to ever happen, but NYPD has a responsibility that, God forbid that was to happen, they have a plan in place in order to react to an active shooter in a school. So that's important.
I'd like to now, we're going to hear from now Chief Marlon Laren. He's going to give us updates specifically on what we're doing with the school safety agency schools. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Good afternoon, Police Commissioner Sewell, Chancellor Banks, DOE Chief of Safety Mark Rampersant, and members of the public. I am Deputy Chief Marlon Laren of the School Safety Division, and I will provide a brief overview of our operations as it stands today. The division is responsible for working hand in hand with the Department of Education to promote positive youth outcomes and to provide safety and security to the 1,800 plus school communities housed in approximately 1,400 buildings throughout the city. The division is staffed by just over 4,000 civilian and uniformed members of the service. We will be welcoming a new class of 118 school safety agents on May 1st, and we anticipate another class of approximately 175 agents in April. Finally, on May 3rd, there will be a school safety agent exam for the 5,000 plus candidates who filed earlier in the year. Many of these candidates were recruited by active school safety agents who are normally assigned to community outreach functions. These same community outreach agents comprise our Outreach with Options unit. This unit is a blend of agents with police officers that are responsible for interacting with students to offer support and to raise awareness on trending items such as vaping, drug use, suicide, bullying, and trafficking. At our wellness centers in the Bronx, South Queens, North Brooklyn, and coming soon to Harlem, they deliver virtual reality training sessions that are anchored in social emotional learning and conflict resolution. Additional workshops cover topics such as financial wellness, photography, spoken word, and videography. Moving on to improvements in technology and training, during the current school year, every school safety agent has been equipped with the same cell phones and capabilities that are afforded to police officers for instant connectivity with the rest of the department. We moved over to a radio infrastructure that gives agents direct access to 911, police communications technicians in the event of crime or disorder in and around our schools while still being able to communicate with DOE administrators. Agents in two boroughs are using the latest model radios, and we seek to expand this on a citywide basis. As the police commissioner said, we enlisted the help of the Counterterrorism Division to train our agents in the most up-to-date curriculum regarding active threats and patient management. We will also be upgrading some of the equipment of our agents, and they will be armed with belt-worn trauma kits, which include first aid materials in the event of an emergency. The School Safety Division operates under the purview of the Community Affairs Bureau, and we work in tandem with other major bureaus within the police department to provide safe corridors to young people as they travel to and from school. Some of the steps that we take to achieve this include, but are not limited to, overlaying mobile patrol units with our partners in patrol, housing, and transit for high visibility coverage, actively monitoring 911 calls for shots fired, stabbing, slashings, and group conflicts within the immediate vicinities of school in order to implement DOE general response protocols such as sheltering in place, notifying patrol services of any incidents or events that may escalate to an act of violence, implementing plans to increase coverage when a threat to a specific person or to a school site is made, and unimpeded communication with our partners at DOE to avert conflicts and to solve problems that affect school communities. In closing, the School Safety Division is a proud partner of the Department of Education. It is our honor to bear the mantle of keeping our school community safe. Finally, we as a division and the police department at large will not rest until every young person is safe. Thank you for your time.
So if you hear what he was saying, they're getting brand new walkie talkies, technology to connect straight to 911 and the same way NYPD has. Every school safety officer is going to have a first aid around their waist. They have been training for, active shooters. Listen, if you go into the schools, school safety and the students um, are interacting a lot of times. You see them sometimes and they notice the kids by name. I've seen them ask them, have they had breakfast yet? Or, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you? So they have those communications. He says that they're going to be doing some workshops um, in order to reach the young kids and do some prevention. So, I mean, it sounds like a plan. Listen, these are the things you want to listen to if you plan on doing business in New York City, if you live in New York City, if you're thinking about moving in New York City, if you're thinking about if you want to leave New York City, you want to hear what is going on. Uh, and he just, said exactly what's the school safety's partnership with the Department of Education, because the Department of Education, that's the lead. So the school safety is supposed to act as a safety, as guards for the kids and the administration while they're in school. Now, when you have youth violence within that, they're supposed to address that as well. He didn't really talk much about the youth violence, but he did talk about um, like I said, the connection and uh, their plans in place and the events that they're doing. So information is always important.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, I have one just point in question. I was on the merger team when school safety, which was under the DOE originally before we merged, and then when I was the chief of community affairs, as you mentioned. And one, I just want to give a shout out. I've always felt as though that they were one of the truly, truly like unsung heroes in this city. They never get the focus. They don't get their recognition as I think they deserve. And I just want to applaud you for the work that you're doing over there, and just to the agents that's there, and to you, Mark, as well, because they truly, truly do a fantastic job. But I just want a critical part is that we see around the country where we have these instances where danger takes place in school, and the amount of time in which responders can get there is critical. You're stating now that we have the radios that they can now communicate directly with patrol forces. Now, can you just speak a little briefly on that? Because that it appears that that's going to cut some time, right? And the time we understand is very critical for we can get help there to assist the children. Can you just speak about that?
Yes, sir, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for your comments. I truly believe that under this administration, our agents are getting the most support that they've seen in a long time. They do very much with very little, and we're very proud of the work that they do. But as it relates to our radio capabilities now, the way that the agents communicated prior to this school year was directly with other school safety agents at our headquarters in Long Island City. Those are additional steps that were in the middle of getting police officers and our emergency services unit, if necessary, to the scene, because in that event, the agent on the field would communicate with an agent at our building, then they in turn would have to call 911. So we cut that middle step out of the way, and the agents on the field can communicate directly to a 911 communications technician on their own division, and that technician will lateral it over to the technician in charge of that specific geographical area. So it cuts down the response time significantly, and the agents are still able to communicate with the DOE administrators to take those steps and implement them to ensure that a shooter or a threat does not penetrate the school site.
Got it. Okay, so we can still communicate with the uh, school safety headquarters, but in certain situations, we can skip a step and get directly to 911, which cuts down our response time.
That is correct, sir.
And this makes a difference if you're thinking about where you're moving to. um there's a website where you can see, all the mass shootings um every day as they come out. And when you see it as real as that, and you're thinking to yourself, and not to be paranoid, but you're just thinking, where would my child be safe in a school should an active shooter, there are towns where they don't have that type of system. It would, you've seen, unfortunately, happen so many times. So for them to say that they have that this system implemented, then you're basically saying don't try that mess in New York City schools. Don't come up in here trying to talk about you want to be an active shooter, or you want to do. It's not going to work here because they're ready.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, school safety is not just confined to any walls of any building. It's not just a matter of having security measures at the school entrance or a school safety agent at the front door. This ensures a holistic approach to school safety. And I think that this is what the administration has been focused on. This is what the chancellor has been focused on. And right now, we're going to hear from the chancellor to speak to us about the measures taking place.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everybody who's here and everybody who is listening, participating in this forum. There's no more important responsibility that I have as chancellor than keeping all of our children safe. I don't do that by myself. The NYPD has tremendous responsibility in this, but I think to the police commissioner's credit, she recognizes it is a joint venture. It is the village. It is parents. It is community members. It is NYPD. It's all of the folks who work every single day in our schools with our kids. They all play a role in addition to the school safety agents. And I have the greatest respect for school safety agents. And some folks know that I was a school safety agent. I worked at Clara Barton High School and wore a uniform before I was a school teacher. And so I recognize I have a particular sensitivity to ensuring that every single one of our children, not only that they're safe, but that they feel safe. Those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is. I really want to credit the mayor, because one of the first things that the mayor really pushed to make sure that it happened a couple months ago was to get every principal in New York City public schools. Which, by the way, guys, we're trying to get away from DOE. We're trying to change the narrative on how we refer to our schools, which is important. We're referring it more and more to New York City public schools, because a lot of times our parents and our families experience even the term DOE as a very negative term. And so we've taken to encourage more and more of New York City public schools. And in our public schools, the mayor said, let's get all of our precinct commanders together on a Zoom with every principal in the city. And it was a very powerful message that he delivered, which was essentially to say, we have to build a greater level of communication. We have not seen an appreciable increase of real incidents in our schools. What we've seen is a lot of what's been happening on the exterior, right outside the school, around the block, up the street. And we have seen a pretty dramatic rise in the number of weapons that our kids have brought to school. But what our kids are telling us is that they're not bringing the weapons to do damage to their classmates in school. They're doing it to protect themselves as they make their way to school and when they're leaving school. I think that's an important distinction that we have to make. And so the mayor's point in bringing all of us together was to say there are issues that start to brew while they're happening in school. We need to be aware of it so that we can get in front of it. And I think that's going to make a big, big difference. So these meetings are happening every week. I talk to principals all over the city. They find them to be extremely valuable. And one of the things that we found out was that the charter school principals were not initially part of those conversations. And we've subsequently brought a meeting together with the charter school leaders from around the city. And now all the charter schools are also represented as part of this process. And so it's really very, very important. We're really excited about that. But many members of the community said, you cannot police your way out of this. The community has to be involved. And that's one of the reasons why we launched Project Pivot. We launched Project Pivot as a $9+ million effort to engage community-based organizations. These are folks who grew up in the community, who know the community, who are mentoring young people, or providing all kinds of additional supports. They are members of the community, and they are playing a huge part in this turnaround. And so we're very early on in the process, but we're feeling really good about where we are. We're looking to increase the level of investment in getting the community, specifically through Project Pivot, to be much more involved, much more engaged, because young people tell us over and over that they want to see more programs. Police Commissioner and I, earlier in the year, were together, and we went to Evander Childs High School. And while we were there, we were talking about issues of safety. And Commissioner, when you agree, overwhelmingly, they told us, we want to see more programs, things that will keep us engaged, keep us off the street, positive things that we can be a part of. And that's what we are trying to lean into and making those things happen. But I will tell you also, something that keeps me up at night is when I look around the country and I see the issues that are happening with these mass shootings, where people just walk into the building and shoot the place up. That keeps me up at night. And that is part of the reason why the mayor has authorized us to move forward with what we're calling our safer access system. Some folks know it as a door locking camera system. We intend to lock the front doors once our kids are in school, and anybody who's coming to visit the school will have to present themselves before entry is made. The doors will not be wide open for anyone to simply walk into. We're going to start this process in May. We're going to start with our elementary schools first. It's going to take place over a number of months. We certainly hope to have all of our schools outfitted with this new technology by the spring. Of our school safety agents are being.
They also have to do it to the back doors because someone can open the back door and let somebody in. So there has to be some type of, alarm system or camera system for back doors, because that's what, a lot of times you hear them come in.
Being trained in this new system as well. And so that is a different level of safety. That's not the daily issues that we're looking at, but that is meant to prevent the mass tragedies that we've been seeing all too often across the nation. And we're going to do everything we can to prevent something like that from happening as well. And the final thing I just want to say here as well is, again, going back to what the police commissioner said, the responsibility for the safety of our children rests with all of us. It is not just the chancellor's responsibility. It's not just the mayor's responsibility. It is not just the police commissioner's responsibility. And I say this at town hall forums all across the city. Parents who say to me all the time, we want to be more involved, we want to be more engaged. This is a way you can be engaged. We want you to be at the schools. We want you to be involved with your principals. And we want you to show up and be present and be an extra set of eyes and ears. Together, if we're all working together, that's how we not only ensure that kids are safe, but we help them to also feel safe. And that's what our obligation is, and that's what we're working toward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Hey, so Mark, this system that the Chancellor just spoke about, right? I went out to a school with you, I believe it was in Queens early in the year, and you gave me an orientation on that. Can you speak briefly exactly what that is? And
yes, sir, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So this system, it just like the Chancellor just shared, the safer access system will give the school safety agent the ability to do access control right from the main desk. It will allow visitors to be seen and communicate directly with the school safety agent before the school safety agent grants access. This is not a system that we're employing to keep our parents out of our building. This is a system that we're employing to keep anybody with ill intentions from accessing our school buildings. It'll give the school safety agent the ability right there from the desk to see through a two-way camera system and communicate through a communication system as well, buzz the visitor in once they've confirmed their meeting or their business at the school.
Now, in the event that police have to get into the school and the door is locked, did we take that into consideration?
Yeah, 100%. We took a very comprehensive look at the different systems that were out there before choosing a system that will allow for us to answer the question of when and if something happens in our school, how our first responders will have direct access. So this particular system has the ability to give our officers access by using a code that will be provided to all of our precincts that will give police officers direct contact or access to our schools. And this is when our alarms go off in our schools and there is a check needed. Currently, a custodian has to come and give access. This way, the police officers or first responders will have direct access by punching a code that will give them direct access to the school.
That's a major upgrade.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so thank you. We've heard from all of our guests. I very much appreciate it. I think that was a lot of good information. Hopefully that the parents out there will take heed. I'm certainly confident that they feel a lot safer after hearing this particular information, but this is not the end. This is the beginning, and we're going to continue to move on as we protect our citizens, and specifically our children. Derek?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We will now open it up for a few on-topic questions from the media. Fabian?
So one of the concerns from some PET members who voted no to this door lock camera system was the concern that students who are seeking help, oftentimes when we have these shootings after school or during school hours involving students outside of the school, they often run to school for a safe haven. If a school security person is not manning the desk, what happens to those kids who desperately need help?
No, listen, we heard that. We heard the concern that was raised at the PEP. Listen, there's no system, right, that will answer every single question and be fully responsive. The number of students that we have who are just out in the streets who need to run into a school is few and far between. The challenge that we have is to ensure that we keep all of these kids safe. And the idea that we would somehow keep that front door open, I have heard from leaders all across the city who have said, we've been saying this for years, you have to lock the front door. Now, this front door will still be manned. There was still going to be somebody there. If there's a young person who's in some level of distress, that school safety agent at the front door is going to see that, and they're going to respond to that. That will be part of the training that they're also getting.
Also, daycares, they have to be locked. So this is not something that's like doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen in the higher grades, in the schools with higher grades.
Respect to this safer access system, it's part of the training that they will in fact receive.
Time. Oftentimes we see shootings at 3:30 happening after dismissal in the area. Oftentimes school safety has left the desk already, correct?
No. The agents, it'll go on as long as, in fact, agents are in fact in the building, and agents are assigned to the building as long as there are people in the building. And so if there are programs that are happening in the school at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, agents are assigned to the school. The agents don't check out at 3 o'clock or 3:30 and there are still people in the building and it's good luck to everybody else. No, there's always an agent assigned to the building if there are people in the building. And if there's no one in the building, then there's no school safety agent. And if a child showed up at a time when there was nobody there, there's nothing we would be able to do at that point anyway.
I think the news is trying to be tough with him because what he's basically saying is, listen, mass shootings are happening all over. We have to protect these young people. He can't sleep at night because all these schools, the same thing you could hear, and it happened in New York City, and that's, it's horrible. What I think has to be said is, no, a school safety agent is not going to always be at the camera, right? They could use the bathroom, they could step away, a parent could come there, someone could come there. There has to be, maybe if it includes a bell or a backup system, that if someone is not there, how can you get in touch with them? Or even if it's a notice that says if no one is answering, that means we are closed for something so people could know. Because I can see someone coming, a parent coming to the camera, trying to get in, trying to speak to someone, and they can't get in. And many a times you've walked into a school and you kind of look around and you see the janitor, you see someone, or you see the last person there, or you finally find the person you're speaking to. So it just has to be a backup system that if there is no person at the camera, does it ring a bell? Is it there a notice? And I think this would probably answer that media person's question. And they're saying it's a safe haven for a young person. What the chancellor is saying is, if the person comes and they're in distress, the school safety is supposed to help them. But if the young person comes and no one answers, that means no one is there. So them running in the building wouldn't help anyway, right? Um, the janitor may not even be in there. No one may not even be in there to help them. So that may not be the best place after hours. If it's 9 o'clock at night, the school's closed. I guess what he could have said is how many hours, what time do they leave? He did say as long as someone is in there, he's there. So if they're using the school for programs, and they're probably still in there. But if he given them a time, the media is just trying to be ridiculous, be difficult.
Guys talked about kind of de-siloing, in terms of the Department of Education, the public schools, as you're referring to them now, and the NYPD communicating. So, many elected officials have kind of highlighted, well, there's this aspect of public safety that deals with social services and social services delivery on the kind of front end of it. So I'm curious, what kind of interactions have public schools had with agencies like DSS, ACS, like to kind of better communicate moving forward? Or do you have plans to kind of do that more?
Well, we are in regular communication across a whole host of mayoral agencies. The guidance counselors that are in our schools, the social workers that we've got across pretty much every school in the city now, as well as thankful to the city council and the legislation that they passed that allowed for that to happen. There is a tremendous level of communication that happens on a regular basis. What we've been talking about here is really establishing a very strong level of communication, certainly between the police commissioner and myself. I don't know that has happened much in the past, and that has been a kind of our foundational experience. But I meet with a host of commissioners also, not as regularly as I meet with the police commissioner, but we're in constant communication. And the mayor brings us together on a very regular basis. So these conversations that are happening very regularly.
There are many.
This interagency communication was not happening under Mayor de Blasio, which is not good. You need the different agencies to communicate, because sometimes they see the same thing and maybe they don't have the answer, but another agency may have the resource. So to see that interagency is important.
Fewer school safety agents today than there were before the pandemic. That'll be true even after these couple of upcoming classes. We haven't really seen an indication in the budget of plans to, fill many of those vacancies or get back to those prior levels. I'm curious, is that a policy decision? Is it a budget decision? Is it trouble recruiting? And if so, do you think the salary could be a concern that's an issue the union has raised?
So we're operating, as you stated, with some significant vacancies in our school safety agents, but that's largely due to the fact that there was an extended hiring freeze on that title, during the prior administration. So as we try to hire up to those positions, we've done a significant amount of recruiting. As the chief mentioned, we are graduating a class that should be out on May 1st, I believe, of 122. We expect to hire another group on April 19th. So while we continue to recruit and hire up to the numbers that we'd like to see them, we're doing a lot of outreach to be able to tell people this is a great position. They do so much. They truly are, as was stated here, they are the unsung heroes. So anyone who is interested to join us and become a school safety agent, we encourage you to come on and join the NYPD.
But is there any intention to get back to the level that you were at before the pandemic? I mean, this is like thousands difference.
We were about 400 short. We actually are about 3,928, I believe. We're about 400 short. Don't quote me on that exact number, but we intend to hire up to the point where we were before.
This is the thing. This is why bringing direct words from the people speaking is important, because the media will take, twist, ask the question 10 different times. She just said, yes, she's trying to get people to come on. She just said if anyone is interested, they could come on. And still, they're saying, do you have any intentions? I mean, she's answered it.
Or if we can.
Thank you, Commissioner. Earlier this week, the administration reached out to New Yorkers, asking them to submit questions for the officials that have joined us here today. We will now get to as many of those as we can with the amount of time that we have left. Our first question comes from Crystal in the Bronx. She asks, with the focus of making the school environment more inclusive and accepting for all students, are there any current or future plans to increase repercussions for cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying is a an example of bullying, and we've got protocols in place for bullying of all types.
And I didn't watch this. So you saw my piece before and I included it and I didn't even know that this question was going to be asked.
And so, yeah, it's, cyberbullying is a more recent occurrence with the recent, technology advancement, particularly coming off of the pandemic. So our teachers are becoming much more aware of it. And we're constantly looking at new ways to monitor it. Because some of these things happen, they're not happening on school time. Generally, we've been dealing with traditional bullying. We've been dealing with issues that take place in school. And so I think the issues of cyberbullying are things that are happening very often outside of the normal school hours. But we are still monitoring that. And when we're made aware of the issues, we still deal with them very much in the same ways. And again, cyberbullying is another, the effect of that is, again, for kids to not feel safe. So you might physically be safe, but emotionally you're not safe. If you feel under assault, you feel like you're being mistreated. Um, and so that's a body of work that we still continue to engage with in our school communities. And that is why we continue to fortify the work that we're doing in our schools together with, again, not just our social workers, but our teachers, our principals. When you create a great culture in school where kids recognize and respect everybody in their school, you minimize issues like cyberbullying.
Right.
So that's a body of work that we continue to be a part of.
And
And he mentioned they have technology to monitor it. So teaching young people that, you know, you're putting these things on, on social media, um, based on how you feel about someone or a situation, and they're monitoring everything, and and then the people who don't feel safe, as he said, is about feeling safe. And sometimes the person doing the bullying doesn't feel safe, and that's what they're doing the bullying to bully back. It's at the end of the day, they're monitoring it. I remember seeing so many classes teaching young people how to use social media. I took a how to use social media class uh, years ago, and you know, you just the young people are just putting anything. They're creating private groups. I heard about a private group, and these young girls were posting fights that they were having in the bathrooms in the group, clothes being ripped off, and so these and once you put it on there, it's there. Once you're putting it on the social media, and they're monitoring it, so you know, eh, many people are seeing it. So it's easier for them to address the cyber stuff because it's, as he mentioned, it's off school grounds, and it may sound like, okay, if it's off school grounds we can't watch it, but going right on social media and they're seeing it.
I'd just like to add on to that question, because I think it's a very good question. Is that when we started out earlier about the mayor's points about parents paying attention, as the chancellor said, a lot of this bullying will take place after, in fact, school hours via the internet. You have to get into your children. You have to stay into your children. You have to notice when something is wrong. And
Right.
you have to have an environment where they're comfortable coming to speak to you, an older sibling, a neighbor. And it starts with just those conversations, because if we catch it early, then we just increase our chances of negating it in the future. But then it festers, and then it has an impact on that particular child. And those signs you see. So we ask for everyone. The chancellor just said that the school officials look for it, but we also need that to be reinforced at the parents level. And if we do that together, as the mayor says, we
Absolutely.
can win if we all just work together.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Catherine from East Harlem. To be
And I want to point out that also includes if your child not looking to see how your child is communicating, how are they feeling in their communication. So, sometimes when you have the bullying, or you have the conflict, you have youth suicide, which uh, I remember saying that it was high as well. So you have to, as a parent, the parents looking more into the child's cell phone, uh, took my daughter's cell phone from her the other day. She was watching, too much screen time. Took it, you know, for a while. And then you could set the screen time as well of how much screen time you want, but it's important to monitor those things.
Cops also patrol school areas.
It's the responsibility of all police officers to protect every area of their responsibility. But we do have youth coordination officers that are in each precinct that are go to the the schools at the time of dismissal. Officers do patrol the areas, but I do want to add something that we talked about briefly earlier is our safe passage or safe corridor that we put in place in conjunction with the New York City public school system. Um, we use our patrol officers, our traffic safety agents, everyone to be able to provide students a safe way to get to and from school. But the chancellor, during one of our conversations, he actually brought forth a very important part of this, similar to what the deputy mayor just talked about, and that's getting our parents involved in those safe corridors as well. So it's going to take all of us to keep our children safe, but our patrol officers do patrol around the schools, but we have youth coordination officers as well that work with our school safety agents.
Our next question comes from Pedro in the Bronx, who asks, is there a reporting system for teachers who see disturbing behavior like gang activity in the schools?
Yes, that is correct. So all of our teachers are familiar with our ORS reporting system, which is our online occurrence reporting system. Anything that happens in the school is reported directly to the dean and or the assistant principal, or a designated staff member identified by the assistant principal. All of these incidents are recorded in our ORS system and followed up with the appropriate disciplinary action, interventions or action.
You see, and that's the gang database that they're creating. And that's scary because you have um young people, mostly young people of color, being placed on this gang database. That's a secret database that no one knows the criteria. So the data creation, right? If you're talking about from elementary school or middle school, and NYPD is holding on to it, then that child has that label. And if you've gotten into fights, that was something small when you were a child, and now it's leading you up to, um it's in a record someplace, right? Even if you're not doing anything anymore, it's still in a record someplace. That that seems unfair for the person, the child, unfair for the parent, like, for that to have a system created that you are not able to, um it's almost as if you're guilty. You have no chance to prove that no, this is not what you think it is, right? So that's the part, but we're going to do a whole nother video on that. I do think that's part of the school to prison pipeline. um I think this video was important to hear what they're doing in the case of a active shooter, and what the plan is, so parents can send their child to school and not see that on the news. And then also that they are putting programs in place to help youth violence, on the school grounds and out of the school grounds.
Thank you. Jacqueline from Queens asks, how many social workers to school safety officers are there per school?
Very important question.
How many school safety agents per school? So we
Social
have
workers,
And the reason why this question is an important question is because I know there are social workers in the schools, and they're going to say they're social workers, and he's asking for the percentage because the safety, of like the policing of the kids in the school, when many of the kids need some type of social help, right? They don't need policing, they need social help. So knowing that there is, a budget, and there are social workers there to help the kids for these wraparound services to prevent the youth violence, as you mentioned, housing, mental health, food, maybe help for the home, and not just want to hand them over to the NYPD, as many people um, may look at safety, right? And like I said, I have a different perspective because of the mass shootings in the schools, that I like to see them more as security for our young people as they go to school, and the administrators, and not policing for our young people. So let's hear what they got to say.
The ratio of school safety agents to social workers, is that what the question is?
Correct.
So I can just speak to the number of school safety agents varies per school based on the size of the school and a number of different factors. But I'll let the chance.
Yeah, we'd have to run the numbers in terms of the ratio on that. Yeah, but you know, every school now has within their budget and a level of autonomy to hire a social worker. So we've got a couple of thousand social workers that are in our schools, but that decision is made by the school level. We don't direct from the chancellor's office to every school that you must in fact have a social worker. Most of them have taken advantage of doing that, but some schools have decided they wanted to use their funding for other personnel, and we leave that to the discretion of the school leadership.
So I don't know. Some schools have metal detectors, some schools don't. Um, that may be something that city council may look at now that he stated that there aren't mandated to have that, then maybe there should be money in the budget separate from the money the school gets to do programs, that it should be mandated that there should be a social worker. Hearing that, there's maybe there should be a few. That's the reason why they asked that question. um and that's why we sit here and watch it, because I actually thought there were social workers in every school. I knew there wouldn't be the amount of officers, and sometimes I've been in a school there was only two officers, so it's not like they have a lot of officers there, but you would think that they would have some social workers. So listen, that may be something for city council to think about and allocate some money. And you know based on his response, and now that we see that's not there, there should be.
Thank you. Next question comes from Rosa in East Harlem. It is important for the DOE, NYPD, and Mayor's Office to have an open communication with residents and parent leaders who are outside each day doing the work and helping our schools. How do you plan to implement this effort?
So
That's a silly question, because some of the news, they just asked the question. There's PTA, there's committees. There's the community board education committees. There's a school meeting committee. Like, you could just join those meetings. Now your voice has to be heard at those meetings, right? Um, let's finish hearing the question.
as we've stated repeatedly to our communities, that we are always in collaboration. We always want to be able to be accessible through community council meetings, parent-teacher conferences that our community affairs and our school safety
Right,
agents will
she's
attend as
naming
well.
there's tons of
It's
meetings.
important that we recognize that this is going to have to be a group approach. We do so much outreach with our communities in the NYPD. Our Community Affairs Bureau goes out to talk at a number of different events that happen at all hours of the day, because we recognize the challenges with some parents and communities in terms of work schedules. But we always want to remain connected with our communities. There are a number of different outreach opportunities, I should say connection opportunities that the communities have with the NYPD. We encourage you to go on our website and be able to volunteer, or be able to find out when we have a meeting or an event that you can come and participate in as well.
Let me say also, since I've become chancellor, I have had more engagement with parent organizations than not. There are dozens of parent organizations, and we are in collaboration and communication with so many of them, from our CECs to our SOTs and parents associations and presidents councils. I mean, there are so many parent organizations where there's a level of communication that is built into our system. And we continue to try to refine that and to hone that and to hear from our parents around what they think are the best ways, in fact, for us to move forward. But parents are not a monolith either. There are parents in certain parts of the city who have very different thoughts and feelings than parents in other parts of the city. My job is to try to listen to all of them and try to help to create policy and procedures here that meet the needs of, of all of our families, recognizing the level of diversity that we do have. But Mark, you want to add something as well?
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, we talked about the importance of parent involvement in our schools. So when we talk about whether or not that exists currently, all of our parents are welcome to participate in our schools, and we continue to push and push and push to get that member of the community, the village, voice heard in our schools, right? And so the chancellor just reiterated the importance of having parents volunteer, right? And so I wanted to reiterate that, to get that on this platform, that we need the support of the entire community in order to keep our schools safe.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I just may add
Of
one more
course you
thing.
can.
Also, for the parents, they may not know there are advocacy groups that are out there that we work with. I can name one right now, the New York City School Safety Coalition. They're very active. They show up at the schools. They promote safety all around for the young people. And just recently, they held a resource fair up in Harlem that the mayor attended personally. And it was a town hall style meeting with parents and kids where they can voice their concerns as to what's affecting them. Because we all here at this table believe that we should also be youth informed. So instead of doing things to them or talking to them, we should be talking with them.
And let me just say one last thing on this as well. And it's not just the parents, it is the community. And so what I mean by that, that there are community organizations, there are credible messenger groups. We're engaging all of them because it's going to take all of us working together in order for us to solve for this.
I want to say I couldn't do this in the De Blasio's administration. He did not have this much communication with the public, with the people. Uh, he didn't let the people know, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, and you see everything I'm not going to agree with. That some things I don't know, some things that you find out now, some things may work, may not work, but at least you know, and that's the key part here. So you're informed. When you think of something that you may need, that that resource is coming out. You may be able to share it with someone. You can make your decisions on just your quality of life, and your life in New York City is why we bring these and we listen to them.
Okay, I just want to just, we've all touched on that. Um, every precinct has a precinct council. They meet monthly where you can sit down and converse with the precinct commanding officer. And the precinct commanding officer has, they're coordinating the public safety efforts in your respective precincts. And I would just strongly suggest that everyone go to at least one meeting. I guarantee if you go to one, you'll go to two. If you go to two, you'll go to three. But if you look at government, the opportunity that you can sit down and directly ask a precinct commanding officer a question, these meetings should be standing room only. Some are, and they are increasing. But you have the opportunity to hear directly what's going on specifically in your community and the things that you could do to help yourself become safer. But more importantly, what you want that precinct commanding officer to know, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. It's a critical tool.
Very important. What he's saying is very important, because went to a precinct meeting and found out that the local park that I wanted to take my children to, had two shootings there, right? So it's like you're gonna hear these things at the precinct. Now, some things they may say a lot of information about, some things they may not give any information about. Uh, but you will hear the stats. They may tell you that there were a couple, you know burglaries in the area, home invasions, or whatever they're telling you. But these are things to keep you up to date of what's going on. And you know they're in every single precinct. They're usually in the precinct or in like a local meeting area. Some that may be online as well on a Zoom. But people go there and they give a review of what's happening throughout that month. um, and people also ask questions. So some people go there, and you know you people share information. I have to tell them, don't share it, call back, speak later on it. But I mean, those meetings are real. But you go in there, like I said, I didn't know that the local um, park uh, had two shootings. and I was able to find that out when I went there to the meeting.
That's there. It's been there for a long time, and a lot of people don't take advantage of it. So we're just pushing that. Every precinct has a precinct community council. Go on the NYPD's website. It will absolutely lay out exactly when it is and what the time is. And I strongly encourage all to take advantage of that.
Next question comes from Angelica in Queens. I believe the commissioner may have touched on, or the chancellor may have touched on this during his remarks, but she asks, do New York City schools have a uniform system to ID visitors?
I can take that question. So any visitor coming to a school site has to check in at the main entrance, at the main desk. The school safety agent there will request who the person is via identification, what the nature of their business is, and then they will reach out to the administration to verify that and allow access into the school.
And they do log the person's name, their ID. They log all that into a book, and they give the person a sticker. But not for nothing, I've been into buildings in Manhattan that have a lot more technology. I've gone into the Bloomberg building and they take your ID, they run it through a scanning system. It's in their system. They take a new picture of you, your ID. You get a sticker that has your new picture. They have the ID. They know who's in their building. Um, I'm pretty sure it's been updated now. It could be like maybe like Amazon when you go into Amazon and scan. So maybe it knows that you've left that same ID. They tell you to keep it for the whole time, and but when you leave, they know that you've left the building. I don't know. The to answer that question um, of how they do it, I think the media personnel is trying to just show that it's not as technology. I mean, you go into any A-class building in New York City, and they're taking your ID and putting it into a computer system before they go in there.
And our final question comes from Emily in Manhattan, who asks, with the accessibility of marijuana products, are schools seeing an increase in students who are attending school under the influence or disruptive in our classrooms?
Yeah, one of the things that that we shared earlier is the relationship that is established between our school leaders and our precinct commanders. And our schools have shared an uptick in the number of shops that are opening up around schools, and we are very concerned that those shops have direct access to our young people. As it relates to an increase, there has certainly been more concerns expressed by young people under the or potentially under the influence.
I think answering that is more education for the young people to show them when their body is not fully developed what it can do to them if they whatever their substance may be, if it's something else that they need assistance with, those are the things that have to be addressed as well.
All of our school leaders are trained to take the appropriate action if we feel like a young person is under the influence. But one of the good things that has been put in place is that relationship that exists so we can report those concerns directly to our local precinct commanders.
We are concerned. I want to say that
Getting them the help
anecdotal,
before the police
evidence that we've
commander.
seen so far. We don't have the, full-on numbers on it, but as what we hear from our school leaders across the city, people are concerned with a bit of an uptick in our students getting access to to this kind of stuff. So we're paying close attention.
But as you've seen, the mayor has made it a priority to make sure that the police department, in conjunction with the sheriffs, are addressing these smoke shops.
Right.
There's a lot of nuisance abatements we have filed, but we're going to continue to work with our partners to be able to shut most of these down when we can.
And stay away from the
Thank you,
kids.
Commissioner. On behalf of the Adams administration, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in to today's briefing. We look